All right, well, the sun is going to set soon. I am on day one of a travel show in Las Vegas. Today was a travel day and load in. I think I'm at, let's see, let me look at the clock. It's 5:30 local, that's 7:30. So I'm actually on about hour 14 in my day from when I left my driveway with the truck and gear through the airport to Vegas, here at the Cosmo, loaded in. And I got a few minutes before dinner. And this is a reoccurring conversation I've had with people offline, off of my YouTube channel here, and it's also just an ongoing conversation with many of my longtime colleague freelancers in the media production business that are in Southern California, and have kind of had enough of being in the big, expensive city, and so they're looking to me since I landed on my feet, more or less, in a secondary market, and I've been doing well. So, if you're new here, welcome to the Cranky Cameraman. I'm a freelance, independent director of photography. I shoot video for business and broadcast. I don't really do any of the post-production. 15 plus years ago, I did a lot of editing, cut a lot of my own work, but I really have made a career out of at Wrap. I am done. I get into pre-pro on the next thing and just kind of get compensated by the day for myself and my equipment, typically a package rate for the baseline kit and myself. I work off of a minimum day rate for myself. It's like I'm not really gonna go out and do a cam op job, labor only, because I can clear 2 to 4 times more on a day where I've got my own gear working as well. Now, if you're a freelancer in media or another occupation, I don't have a bunch of answers for you, but I can take you through my personal experience now that I'm 2 years in on a brand new city. So I spent the first 22 years of my career full-time in media in Southern California, primarily the Los Angeles market. I spent my first few years based out of Burbank, and then I bought a house down in Orange County, and the bulk of my, basically 20 of the 22 years, I was based in Orange County, but would commute up to LA, but being down in OC, it also made San Diego within reach, so I could play both markets. And I found over the years, I was actually much happier just working on projects in OC. There's actually enough work there to sustain a big pool of freelancers, corporate communications, event work, freelance, commercial production. Okay, so when I first started out in Los Angeles, I discovered that some of the senior people didn't live in the city. They would commute in for projects and then go back, airline or like a 12 to plus hour drive to a home base. I'm gonna check the exposure and make sure we're not getting too dark. New shirt, new day, just wrapped day 2. Got back from dinner last night and just didn't have the energy to finish out this video. So when I first started out in my early 20s as a freelancer in Southern California, there were some senior level people, a couple of cinematographers, and then I later met 2 camera assistants, a first AC and a second AC on big studio pictures. And in those examples, the cinematographer lived in Mississippi, and he would come into LA, shoot out a feature or 2, and then go back to Mississippi for a couple of months, half a year, come back to LA for a month or more, shoot the next movie. And he, I think, put his first 15 or 20 years, he was based in Southern California. But then as he got older and established in a client base, he went back to his home state. And that sounded really appealing to me. I'd love to get to a position someday where I could do the same. These 2 camera assistants, same model. They worked together on all these big productions, and they ended up both moving to Hawaii, have their kids and families in Hawaii, and they share an apartment in Los Angeles for when they have a picture in town. But then in the latter years, most of their work was out in other countries. So backing up about 4 years before I relocated from Southern California to Texas, I wanted to start building up repeat, lower risk production work. And I found the corporate event space is pretty good in that regard. I had a biotech client. They come back to Irvine, California every year for the same conference. I would just shoot sizzle reel and little green screen interviews of the presenters in a small conference room. And that would be 3 or 4 days of work. Second week of the month, I could count on it each year. So I focused on building up more of those, and kind of my dream was, wow, it'd be fantastic if I had 12 conferences, 1 per month, and that would be my baseline kind of survival revenue. So if I jump ahead to the year I moved, I had 8 months of a conference per month, 8 out of 12 months. And I think 2 of those months, January and maybe I think March, I had 2 conferences in a month. So basically, yeah, 2 weeks of work blocked out. So anyway, 8 of those teed up, all that I'd worked on more than 1 year. Most of those were in Southern California, but I did have a few of them that were based in Las Vegas, one in Phoenix. And my thinking was, if I'm in another state, for 3 to 5 days of work, I'll pay for my own travel and accommodation to get back there and do it if the customer is unable to cover my travel expenses. The next piece, and what sparked my interest in recording this video right now, is this show I'm at here in Vegas. So this 2019 was, I believe, my 4th year on this show, and it's the same thing. It's a week of work in Las Vegas. I shoot the promotional content and some like man on the street interviews, but mostly sizzle reel of the show, and it's all for promotional purposes to drive attendance the following year. And the bigger component to this specific conference is there's an award show on the last night, and I shoot all of the roll-in nominee content for the show. We basically do a little feature package in 90 seconds to 2 minutes on each nominee, and there's up to 9. And each of those is a multi-day travel job. We fly to the city wherever the nominee is located, shoot B-roll, shoot a structured sit-down interview, fly home, and those get scattered out over the first quarter of each year. So it's kind of looking at that as like, that alone would cover my kind of bare bones operating expenses for Q1 of every calendar year, this specific show. Now the next item that's repeat business is I've spent several years working on this bull riding event whenever they're in Southern California. I'd also do a little bit in Northern Cal, like if they're up in Sacramento, and also I could drive to Arizona and work on the shows there. So talking to the producer of that circuit, said, hey, if I relocate to Texas, can you guys switch me over and put me on some of the Texas, Oklahoma, maybe Louisiana work? And that was one of the first projects I worked on as a new resident in Texas. The next hopeful piece of business on the relocation list is I had 20 plus years of producer and agency contacts that would book me in Southern California. Now some of those producers would be good for like 1 assignment per calendar year, but others are like every other month, some even multiple within a month. And my thinking was, well, I imagine most of those aren't going to travel me back to Southern California to shoot. My hope was they would have some work in the Texas region. I lucked out and had virtually no downtime on my relocate. Actually, I drove to South Texas from California August 1st and 2nd. I think I was in Texas on August 3rd, and then August 4, I was on a plane to Chicago to shoot a commercial. And after Chicago, one of the agencies I worked for in California had a shoot in Dallas, and that was a week of work. So I went up to Dallas, and then from Dallas, I had a bunch of commitments already teed up in Southern California, so I ended up traveling myself back to California several times for about 6 months. And if you click back through my channel here, you can see from like August of 2020 right through most of 2021, I had a lot of trips going back to Southern California. Now on almost all of those, I paid for my own fuel and travel time was off the clock. But I had each trip back there, I would tee up 3 or more production days. Sometimes I'd stay there for 2 weeks and knock out a whole bunch of billable days. And that kept me going as I slowly built more local bookings in the Texas region. One of the things I had to accept being based in Texas is I was going to have a lot more travel days, and usually your rate is reduced a bit on those travel days. All the years I was in Southern California, there's enough volume of work there that if someone would try to book me for travel, I'd have to weigh the like, all right, it's a shoot date out of state, it's a 1-day shoot, 2 days of travel. Let's say they're doing a half rate on the travel days. So it's like 2 days in the calendar where if I decline on that, because it's going to burn up my whole week, I'm probably going to pick up more than 2 days of local work. But that's not necessarily the case for me being in South Texas. Now it's a whole lot of travel, but I'm at that stage in my career where I'm enjoying the road time. All right, I gotta run out to a crew dinner. I hope this has been helpful or a little bit constructive if you're considering a big relocation or even the transition from staff to freelance. I have a lot of discussions offline, direct messages, asking me about the big move and how disruptive was it to my career. And it's been good. Texas is my 5th state as a resident. I don't think it's going to be my last, but I'd love to hear your experiences or the things you're struggling with. If you want to change locations but maintain your career path in media, let's continue that discussion in the comments below. Thanks.